Welcome. This meeting is called to order at, what time is it? At 7:07 p.m. One second. Please join with me while the District Clerk leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A motion be ordered to approve and second the agenda of that the agenda of October 6th, 2020 be approved as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? A motion be ordered to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the September 22nd meeting as submitted, the acceptance of the recommendation from the Committee of Special Education, the acceptance of the recommendation of the Committee of Preschool Special Education, the acceptance of the recommendation of the Superintendent's personnel changes, the request to approve the recommended bidders, and the approval of the request to dispose unserviceable textbooks. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. It's recommended that there's a motion that the treasury report, including the cash report, the general fund report, the general fund revenue status report, the general fund budget status report, the school lunch fund cash report, and the school lunch fund revenue and expense budget report for the month ending August 31st be approved.
So
Motion.
moved.
And
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. Now it's time for special reports. I'll pass it to Dr. Putnam for the special reports.
Thanks. We have two special reports this evening. First up is capital project update, and I'll ask Jared Miller and Gary Huffman to come forward on behalf of Campus Construction. And then after these two fine gentlemen, we'll hear from our own Al McNiff, Director of Facilities, for a facilities update on the work that took place this summer internally and will still be taking place this fall. But I'll turn it over to Gary and Jared. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. Does everybody know Jared Miller? Have we met? Oh, sorry. Does everybody know Jared Miller? Sorry.
We saw him on Zoom.
I feel like I'm testifying before Congress. We were just talking a few minutes ago about it's been 10 years since we built this auditorium.
Yeah?
Looks phenomenal. So Jared Miller is a project manager with us. He's my lead guy for the project. He's doing an outstanding job. He's going to give you the update on the project this evening, and we appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We'll be giving updates on both the elementary additions project as well as the roofing project. We'll first start with the budget briefly. Budgets on both projects are extremely healthy, doing really well financially on both of them, no concerns, especially at this point in the project. We're considered about the halfway point for the additions project and close to completion on the roofing project. So doing really well on both of those. We did send through a photo update of construction progress, and I guess I am in control. We're going to start over at Cobbles Elementary. So what you see here at Cobbles, you guys can all see that on your screens, or?
Mm-hmm.
So what you see here up top, actually all three pictures are site work that has been completed at Cobbles. That's the new parking area, new sidewalks at the bus loop. Construction is near completion, and I say that only because we're still holding out on the last course of asphalt until next year, when the remainder of the loading dock portion is complete. The parking lot is functional, as you can see in the photos. I think the design really lends itself well to the safety in that area, and just judging by the day-to-day, there's no more cars parked up up alongside the road anymore. Took a little bit of a learning curve to get everybody to realize they didn't have to park on the road anymore. So I think that's working out really well. The contractors performed really well over there for us and got that done well within the scheduled timeline. This next photo is your classroom edition out back. It's amazing what a week and a half will do. We prepared these at the end of the month, and with it being just the 6th of October, we're well past what's shown in this photo. All of our windows are in. Our ephes, which is that gray area above the windows, that is complete. And as we move into the building, you'll see a lot of our drywall finishes are now first and second coat of paint.
Oh.
So
That's not the paint color.
no, it's not purple with white stripes. That's we could change it if you'd like. But since this photo was taken, the contractors have been full steam ahead. We have, like I said, first coat of paint in much of the spaces so we can get a lot of the finishes on. Really hoping to move forward into casework at the middle of this week. Tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. So by the end of next week, we'll have all of the cabinets, cubbies, and things of that nature in place. So the final thing to follow with that will be all of our mechanical finishes and our flooring. So that space is coming along really nicely, well within schedule, and hoping to turn it over sooner rather than later. This is a jump over to the roofing project, which was over at Cobbles Elementary. All the gray area is the new fluid applied roofing. The project was extremely successful. The lower structure steel that you see there is now holding the new chiller for the building. The chiller is in place. Everything is piped, has power to it. The only thing we're waiting for is a final connection when we do our service changeover with RG&E, hopefully at the end of this week. So lots of big things going on over there with the roof. We'll jump over to Indian Landing, probably one of the most drastic changes site-wise. The contractors took apart and put back together what is now the new bus loop in record time. If you saw it a week or a month ahead of when school was coming back, you'd say they would never finish it. But they had a goal in mind, they stuck to it, and they did a great job getting that work completed. Right now, the plan is to be 100% as far as pavement by the end of the month. That'll put them technically about a year ahead as far as completion of that space. They were technically not supposed to top it until next year, but they got after it and are hoping to get it 100% turned over at the end of this month. Again, more site updates. The one in the lower section is along the bus loop. You got a new flagpole there. You can't see the whole flagpole, but a lot of stamped concrete around the main entrance. The picture up above is the new ramp at the student drop-off. Right now, the drop-off loop is 50% taken over with what we have now as a staging area. Once we're complete with the additions over on that project, that'll be opened up for 100% use, and I think it'll function really well. Up top, you've got your front classroom addition. Again, it's amazing what about a week and a half makes as far as progress. This is just the foundation shown here. It's a progress shot of foundation work. That foundation is now 100%. They're doing the masonry firewall between the existing building and what will be the new building. They're 100% backfilled and going to be ready for steel pretty soon. Also with Indian Landing, didn't have a good photo in that series, but out back at Indian Landing, the cafeteria foundations are all 100% as well. So that'll be almost in the same position as the classroom addition out front. Obviously over here we have Scribner Elementary. And these are pictures of the new gymnasium, currently being utilized as the serving line. We had a slight delay with delivery of our exterior doors. Those should be in by the end of the month and make that space 100%. I think the space came out really nice. You can see it in the top photo. Nice, nice school colors. That space is scheduled to get a rubberized flooring system, but we held off on it due to the use currently. As it's currently the serving line, we figured it'd be best to get in there once it's open and available and turn back into a gym to get that floor replaced back in there. This next photo is what will be the fitness center on the bottom. The area up above is the new corridor out to the cafeteria addition. It's actually between the music rooms and the cafeteria addition. So what you see up top is a new corridor to get out of the building from your main hallway at Scribner. There's two new toilet rooms off of that corridor, and that space is 100% turned over. We have a temporary egress door out the back so we can continue working on the project. The lower space, again, is the fitness room. We're expecting to get the flooring in there complete in the next week and a half, and that space will also be turned over. That gets a rubberized rolled product floor. And I'll keep repeating myself again, a week and a half makes such a difference. This is a good shot of the cafeteria addition and all the structural steel. We currently have all of our exterior framing and nearly all of our interior framing complete in this area. Without, the only thing holding us up from doing the interior walls as far as board is the exterior wall, making it watertight, but we're moving in that direction. Within that space, behind the masonry wall is your existing cafeteria, and there's framing and HVAC work that's ongoing in there as well. This is your front classroom addition. This was during the framing process. They've since moved to doing the exterior cladding, which is a metal insulated panel that will get covered mostly with brick. But we're almost enclosed on this space as we speak. And a lot of the interior drywall is also complete in these spaces. Moving over to the building we're in now, the roofing project here is 100% complete. Had a lot of good success with a new contractor for roofing. They performed really well. Upstate Roofing performed really well for us. Completed it well ahead of schedule and again under budget. The third and final, or the second piece of the Penfield High School job is the main office. We redid the ceilings in that space, all new lighting. That was taken down over the summer and put back before everyone was reoccupying that space toward the beginning of school. Another item we ran into with the roofing and the ceiling project was this air handler that you see below. The existing was outdated. It was ready to be replaced. So on a change order, this was purchased and replaced in a timely manner, and it's now in and operational. So that's it for the photo update. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Board, any questions for Jared or Gary? Looks good. This is the best part, seeing all the stuff come together.
Thank you.
Good. Well,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
So our second special report is Alan McNiff for a facilities update.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Hello?
Hello, Alan.
Alan.
It's good to see you.
You too.
It's been a little while. It's weird sitting here like this.
It's nice that we're not on Zoom, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know,
Yes.
right? Exactly. It's a new
It's
thing.
still weird.
Step closer, step closer. Before I get into my facilities update, I think it's important that I address one thing that's that you folks wouldn't know about. We talk about team all the time, right? The Penfield team. And when it comes to our capital project work, we've got firms like Campus Construction, SEI Design, and they have performed just like a team member for Penfield. The cohesiveness of the group and creating that bond with the contractors has been outstanding. And it's not usually you see that all the time. So something that I see that you folks don't get to see, I think it's important for me to recognize that and fill you in on that and how successful this project is, and it's based upon that cohesiveness and the outstanding work that Jared has done to keep everyone going in the same direction has been fantastic. So I just wanted to point that out.
Good. Thank you, Alan.
Additionally, with capital project work as well as facilities-related work that we did this summer, the building administrators dealing with all of their planning for this coming school year and dealing with capital project changes and schedule adjustments, they have been flexible as well. That has made things a whole lot easier, less stress for everyone, is trying to be a little bit more flexible to make things work as best as they can given the circumstances that we have. So I appreciate their flexibility in working with us to develop their projects as we move forward. And then finally, I think it's important just for me to recognize our buildings and grounds and custodial staff. Not only did they deal with the cleaning piece of it like we normally do, and then moving out half the furniture of the buildings into trailers to accommodate our space needs, but then also have our capital project work at the same time. They did an outstanding job. There were no complaints. They really kind of stepped up to the plate more than I ever expected. So I think it's important that I recognize them as well today. So let me get started and talk about some of the stuff that we did this summer, or this summer and a little bit in the fall, not much. But keep in mind that this work takes a lot of time for development. We started development of all of our summer projects back in January, all the way to the end of June. So it was difficult to do that in a way that I've never had a challenge before with regards to contractors, availability of materials. The procurement process was a challenge. It was definitely something different. But again, I think it was great to see the help that I received from the district office, even though everyone was working remotely. When Kim Adirante, our purchasing agent, helping me do bids, anything we can do on that side to set up all of our procurement process, and Bill Maloney and his team for helping that process work through itself. It was much appreciated. So, and the other piece is obviously schedule. I mentioned it briefly. Is campus dealt with this. We dealt with this internally with just getting products and the delay on certain things and how that affected the schedule for the entire summer. But I would say it certainly was a successful summer with both aspects. So let me go through a summary. I'm sorry I got to look up like this to look at the list here. And again, these are my highlighted lists. We have obviously much other things that we did beyond these, but these are like notable pieces that I wanted to mention. The first one was the student parking lot. We replaced that top layer of asphalt, and as you folks know, we've done now at this point all sections of the high school. We've kind of phased that out over the course of the last couple of years, so now we've kind of completed that. Our asphalt's in really good shape here at the high school. Second to that would be the varsity baseball field. So I'm not sure if you folks get any comments from the players or parents, but we've dealt with some issues with the grading on that field for a number of years. We have a lip on the edge, so the ball would bounce and cause some issues for play. And it was time that we needed to address that. So you'll see photos later, and it'll be a little bit more apparent. But basically, we pulled off a section of the outside section of infield to regrade that, get a nice smooth surface, and hopefully a lot better playing ability in the springtime of this year. Next on the list was the domestic hot water system, the hot water storage, a hot water boiler, and the storage tanks. And I'll get to show this on the board tours on Friday, so those of you who attend will be thrilled to see this. This has been a process where I've gone through the district building by building and replaced some of our vintage infrastructure from our hot water boiler systems. And this kind of completes that loop, if you will, of trying to get them done. Pool rooftop unit, we replaced the dehumidification coil. It sounds pretty straightforward. It removes the humidity from the space, and it's used mostly in the summertime when we've got the air conditioner running. It brings that humidity and comfort level down in the space. There has been problems with it for a number of years. We were able to move forward to get the whole coil replaced and make the space a whole lot more comfortable for usage. Minor item was a pool equipment room where items are stored, addressing the heat in that system. The main office, Jared Miller there mentioned that part of the capital project, there was a partial renovation from their side, replacing the ceilings and lighting systems, and that was to accommodate the HVAC work. That happened from that rooftop unit. So on our side, we had to move everything out, so it was the time to redo the entire carpet in that space, repaint the entire office, and freshen the whole thing up. So we did that as a dovetail, and that was, again, coordination of schedule with all contractors. Main conference room, we did basically a full renovation there, flooring, ceilings, lights, and we're going to be putting cabinets in there soon, too. And finally, at the high school kitchen walk-in cooler, just replacing one of the condensing units that provides the freezing capability for that unit. Moving over to Bay Trail, those of you who have seen this before, we have a music computer lab in the section over there. We did that in the 2010 capital project. As Gary mentioned earlier, it's been 10 years. One of the things that was becoming apparent from Winton and his team over there was we really need some more space in there. We need more units for kids to have in that space so they can accommodate the amount of interest that they have for the program. And we said, okay, we can look at that. I think we should be able to do that. We were able to configure the space to accommodate and get 10 more students in that space. And it actually worked out well this year because now with the spatial requirements in there, we were able to accommodate a little bit more than we normally would, which was kind of nice. And at the same time, Winton had asked, the computer lab that we have over in House B, it's got the traditional computer classroom with long tables and so forth. He wanted to use that more of a flexibility type space for the development of his educational program, which made sense. So we were able to take a lot of that casework, modify it, and reutilize it for the other space. So that worked out well, and our maintenance team did a great job. They're great at carpentry and making that work for the new space. It was great. And then site pole lighting. Actually this is way before March, during the winter, we replaced all the outside lighting poles with new LED fixtures. So we've got great white light coverage over there now as opposed to what we've had previously. It's great. Fitness center, we replaced the dated rooftop HVAC unit over there. And roof ladders. I might have mentioned this before in some of our board tours at the high school. We've replaced all of the old vintage ladders and now Bay Trail. We'll be doing that this fall. That was one of the items where we just couldn't get product in time to do it this summer. But to me, that's a safety item for lots of different reasons, mostly for our staff and contractors that are constantly on our buildings, from a little ladder to now something that's more substantial and meets safety requirements a whole lot better. At Scribner, this goes back to, again, the capital project work. They had to put a lot of structural steel inside the upper section of the library, and it, again, was an opportunity to, if we knew we were going to have to move all the library out, why don't we do the carpet, right? It's our only shot to do this. So not only did that, but we painted the entire space, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when I show you the photos, but it was another one of those. The steel came late for the project, for the capital project, but we made it work. And Scott Hirschler and his team was flexible, like, okay, we can make this work. We worked together on it to make it successful in the end. So I was really happy with the way that turned out. At Indian Landing, nurse's office renovation, new lights, ceilings, and I got casework coming in this Friday to be installed in that space. It hasn't been updated in a little bit of time, so it made sense to do that. And then again at Indian Landing with the domestic hot water system, installation of new efficient boiler in that space. Cobbles, floor replacement for the teacher's lounge, and in the main office, we reconfigured the HVAC system to have a standalone air conditioning unit. So in the past, the only way you could air condition the main office was to turn up the main primary air conditioner chiller to run the whole building. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense from an efficiency standpoint, now does it? So we found a way to utilize an existing piece of equipment that was in good shape to implement it for just implementing air conditioning in that office and not have to air condition the entire building. So it should save on our energy costs when it comes to the summer time period. And then Harris Hill, we did a section of asphalt replacement at the basketball court. And then at the district office, again, same situation there. We replaced the top layer of asphalt as has been starting to break apart. So it gives us some longevity of life now moving forward. So that's my condensed list. And then I'll go briefly through those photos. Now, you guys will be excited when you see this in board tours, where those are going to come with us. You know how I love to show you this stuff. But here are a couple photos from Indian Landing. On the right-hand side is a heat exchanger unit. So what we did essentially is this. The way that the domestic hot water, the hot water to the sinks, had previously been done is it runs through that heat exchanger by firing our primary boilers to the building. So it provides the heat to the building. And then it goes through that unit and then provides the heat to the hot water storage system. Again, not very efficient when you're running a building boiler to provide just hot water in the middle of summertime, right? So what we installed was a new energy efficient boiler that just heats the domestic hot water system off on the picture to the left. So much more efficient for a long range and give us a lot longer of lifetime on our primary boilers at that building. This is a system at the high school. Again, we replaced the old boilers that used to be back there where the red tanks are now. Those are storage tanks where the water is held. And then the boiler, the little efficiency boiler, you see is right there in front of us. What's important for me to know, and I can talk through this and again on the board tour, is that we receive our initial heat for the domestic hot water system through our cogen system. And if we don't have that on, we need the supplemental heat, we have the little efficiency boiler to make up that difference. And then here we are at the high school, the varsity baseball field with the regrading. You can see how we've kind of cut up the whole outside section of the diamond itself, just outside that perimeter as it goes into the outfield. You can see it's a nice grader, we had a great contractor who does this work all the time. Got our grades perfect. We hope that would eliminate some of our drainage issues to some degree, but really that playability of surface should be much more significant because after we were done with the regrading, we put brand new sod down so we don't have to worry about the germination of the grass for a couple seasons to really take in. We did it perfect timing. Contractor did it end of August there, where we've had cool nights. Really grows strong when it has those kind of environment with it. So. And then here's a picture of the music room at Bay Trail I talked about earlier. Basically, you see that center section where you've got those additional workstations. And also what happened with this design, working with that teacher, is that the teacher station is now in the center of that unit. So they're able to monitor the entire space a little bit more effectively and control at the same time. So really functionality of the space, really, I think they were thrilled with the way that's set up now. But it still gives us plenty of space for maneuverability around the room and meet code and so forth. And then finally here at Scribner, the library update. This has obviously been updated since then because I took this a week or so ago, but some of you are familiar with Harris Hill. You start to see a little bit of cues that we did from the same design concept that I wanted to put in here is the nice new carpet tile, and that can be replaced if one gets a stain, but also you look at the red pod chairs. We've got the same situation at Harris Hill when we did that design, and you see some of the chairs that are starting to be set up and put together, about same finishes for tables and chairs, so we have that consistency for all the students. But also you can see our colors. We made colors a little bit more different in there. We got our plain white around most of the perimeter, then we got all these nice pop colors of primary colors throughout the space that the librarian, Scott Hirschler and his team really liked the outcome of how it worked. Really changed a little bit look of the space. I think that concludes my formal presentation. If there's any questions you folks have, I'd be happy to answer anything.
All right, board, does any questions for Alan? Barb?
I just wanted to, actually it's not a question, I just want to give a comment. Just hearing how excited you are when you're doing this presentation made me excited.
Oh, good.
Because I know that this is your expertise and all of the changes that you have pointed out to us when we've been on these tours that you wanted to see have happen, they've happened. And I am smiling underneath this mask because I'm really excited that the efficiencies have come to fruition. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, and the support from you and our community really helps that along too, by all means. Anything else, folks?
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Catherine?
Alan, the casework that you're referring to at Indian Landing, is that like baseboards and trim, or what is casework?
Oh, casework is cabinets and countertops,
Oh,
things of
okay.
that nature. So they've had a dated finish in there where it's starting to fall apart, and it just really wasn't efficient for where their usage is. So now we're going to have brand new units inside that area for
Okay.
those nurses.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Alan, it just seems like, of course, you always do a lot every summer. It seems like this year you did just so much more. I mean, how did that work out this year with the school being vacant and with the construction, which you were able to do?
I can tell you it's one of the most challenging summers I had, trying to do that and then buy a lot of PPE and implementation of that. Just the vendor procurement process for that was very difficult, getting product. It was an interesting summer, but not unsurmountable. Like, we were able to make the balancing act happen. The flexibility of everyone made this work. If we didn't have that, this would have been much more difficult. Like I said, we had challenges with getting product. We had challenges with certain contractor availability because of everyone's doing work at the same time at the last minute. So it was difficult, but it was a new challenge. But what was great about it is that our staff, and I should say almost all, even the contractors, they knew we had to make it happen. It was definitely great. There were projects that we started, and it was the best opportunity though, because we didn't have people in the buildings for the most part, right? We just had administrators trying to set up programs. We didn't have a lot of usage from the students and programs of that nature, so we took advantage of that as best as we could. So I think that contributed to the success of it.
Well, it's very impressive, and I think we're probably ahead of where we need to be for this upcoming year and all the summer projects. And we're looking forward to the tour to see all the stuff in person.
Good. I can't wait to show you. Very good.
May I make a comment?
Certainly.
Thanks. So if I have Alan here, I just wanted to share something. One is I just wanted to say thank you to Alan. Alan has presented to the board many times. You go on tours with him. I love the fact that he comes in and says something like the team approach, and then gives lots of accolades to everybody around. And I just want to point out to the board, more importantly the community, that Alan in his role I see as just an incredible leader, because he gives away every compliment you try to give him, and then he embraces every concern and owns it. So I appreciate that, Alan, and working with you. I'm glad you mentioned it, because I started making a list up here of all the PPE Alan was also in overseeing and purchasing when it comes to gloves and sanitizer and cleaning products and masks and shields and thermometers and everything else. And I think that would break just about anybody when the superintendent calls on a regular basis, like, can we buy 50,000 more masks? So, but he never lost his mind, and I appreciate that. I really do just want to second that comment that people really work together in a difficult time. And then, because I have Alan here and we moved him to a special report, I'm going to talk about this briefly, which is, Alan is an integral part of this, which is, this is part of my superintendent update. I'm going to talk about this again quickly then, but I just want to thank, when Alan is here, is that Utica National Insurance Group has awarded Penfield Central School District the 2020 School Safety Excellence Award. The award is presented in recognition of the district's outstanding efforts to create a safer school environment, and as a direct result of the district's diligence and adherence to safety principles. And I know there's a lot of work goes into just putting the information together for Utica, but really all the work that we do. It comes with a really beautiful plaque that's sitting on my desk right now, but I forgot to bring. But we'll get you that plaque for your office or for B&G. So I just want to say thank you, Alan, while you're here, because I know we're going to let you run out of here, but wanted to make sure you were here when I present that piece to the board.
Thank you. I appreciate that, but again, it comes back to our committee and the team here, like, understanding and going through that. The committee meeting 4 times a year and going through things and being supportive of us and making implementation of program, it's great. Without that, we wouldn't have these awards, so.
I did tell you that he doesn't take any compliment.
Nope, I don't.
But I appreciate it. Thank you very,
Thank you
very
very
much.
much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
And that concludes special reports.
Special reports. Which brings us to visitor speaking time. Do we have anyone? No one here? Just to remind the community that we do have a period for public content. This is a designated time for district residents to bring their comments to the board. The board encourages residents to share their opinions, voice concerns, and offer suggestions in a constructive atmosphere. Matters involving particular individuals or specifics of negotiations are not permitted during public session and should be addressed privately with the board president or superintendent. Comments brought to the board will be taken under consideration. However, this is not the time when the board can answer questions or engage in dialogue. A request to speak form must be filled out prior to the start of the meeting and given to the district clerk. Speakers are expected to identify themselves with their name and address before presenting and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less. The board president reserves the right to limit the total amount of speaking time based on the length of the agenda. Written comments to the board are always encouraged. So again, we look forward to having people come in and comment, but not today. Next is our presentation from our student representative, Abby.
Hello?
Yep.
Hi, everybody. To get things started off, at Penfield High School, the girls' field hockey team participated in Community Cleanup Day at Maplewood Park. The SAT was held on October 3rd. I would know. I attended, and scores come out on Friday, so fingers crossed. Multiple sports began their first days of practice, and the girls' basketball team continued with their tradition of making 1,000 follow shots before the start of the season. At Scribner, Mrs. Norris's first grade class built a miniature golf course after reading a Super Kid story about golfing. At Cobbles, Mrs. Compton's class is learning how to decode one-syllable words and answer fill-in-the-blank questions based on pictures in their assignments. Fourth graders are learning about mindset and the importance of changing it from a negative one to a more optimistic point of view. At Indian Landing, with COVID-19 precautions in place, a group of first graders were very excited to check out their library books. Mrs. Barragato's fourth grade class started their day with an interactive morning meeting. Mrs. Palmer's first grade class is learning about Pronouns with Super Kids, which is a online learning platform that involves songs and digital lessons. At Harris Hill, a first grader won a Hound sticker for being responsible during a math lesson. PE was held outside in the great weather I still wish we had today, and while still maintaining social distancing. PTA members surprised students with different toys and games for recess, and they were very excited. And third graders are learning about the distributive property and learning songs to help with skip counting by threes. And finally, with district-wide news, October is National Bullying Prevention Month, where students are encouraged to wear orange, the color of unity. Act for Education is having bi-weekly panel discussions, which will address educational topics that are important to the community starting October 1st. And all districts celebrated and recognized Hispanic Heritage Month that lasts from September 15th to October 15th. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Abby. Any questions for Abby?
I have a question for Abby. Abby, you took the SAT.
I did,
What date did you take that?
the 3rd.
And then, so I was just curious, because you said then scores are coming in this Friday?
Yes.
So, okay, that's pretty fast turnaround for scores. I don't remember being that fast when I took the SAT.
Oh, I apologize. That was actually on September 29th that are coming out. The first one I took, and then the 3rd are coming out the 16th.
Okay, all right, well, good luck.
I
I'm sure you
apologize.
did,
Thank
I'm
you.
sure you did well. That's great.
So
Thank you.
Abby, how was it with the SATs with the layout? And was that pretty comfortable or feel normal?
I'm in a room that has testing accommodations, so it's fewer people and longer time. So it still felt pretty normal, and I think the other kids in the building could attest for that.
Oh, good, good.
I like how she said, could attest for that. You got that?
Oh.
That was pretty good.
No pun intended.
Okay, turn it over to Dr. Putnam for the superintendent's report.
Great. So, we do have 3 superintendent reports. I do have just a brief student and staff honors, and then I will provide some PCSD updates, and then I will turn it over to Dr. Driffill to talk about the budget calendar for this year. So we have congratulations to the following students who've been selected to participate in the 2020 NYSBA All-State Conference. I won't read all the names, they're in the agenda, and we have their photos here as well. Again, we talk a lot about all-state music here in Penfield. We have an incredible music program that starts with Suzuki at the elementary schools and all the way through high school. I know that this year is different with lots of virtual lessons and virtual performances, but we are going to continue to build upon everything we can to get music back in our lives pre-COVID. But I really appreciate all that our music teachers are doing to continue the education, sometimes more in a virtual world than an in-person world. Congratulations to those students. Also, congratulations to the National Honor Society. 75 Penfield High School students that are all listed in the agenda were inducted into the National Honor Society last week. Congratulations to those students. A lot of hard work goes forward in order to be looked at and then apply and then be accepted in the National Honor Society. So congratulations to those 75 high school students. I won't dwell on this. I talked about this during our special reports when Alan McNiff was with us, and I will say he gave credit to the health and wellness team and that committee and the work that many representatives put forth, but it really is a great feather in the cap again for our district, and thanks to Alan's leadership around this to be designated as a 2020 School Safety Excellence Award. And then I'll get into my PCSD updates. And there's a few here I just want to talk through. I'm going to be very honest and transparent. I just got tired of having a title slide that said COVID-19 updates because I figured it would be like that forever. So instead we're going to call it Penfield Central School District updates. I'll talk a little bit about COVID, but I'll talk about some other things as well. So I just wanted to speak to the board, but also the community, that new guidance was released last week by the New York State Department of Health, reviewed and approved by the Monroe County Department of Health. That included updated flowcharts and information around when to come to school, and if you can't come to school because of a symptom, how do you get back to school? And that was shared with families and staff because the guidance also changes some language for staff and also for students. And so the flowcharts, I will say, the first set of flowcharts we received in August were extremely confusing. I will give the Department of Health credit that the flowcharts are getting a little bit more easy to follow. I'm not always happy underneath this mask that sometimes it does feel like more and more roadblocks, but it is what it is. That's sort of the line. I don't get to change the Department of Health guidance on when you can and can't come to school and what you have to do if you have symptoms, but what we can do is transparently show that information to our community, work with our nurses, and we'll continue to share new guidance with families and staff as appropriate. I'm a betting man, and I imagine we'll have another flowchart at some point that we will share out. As of 10/6, I want to talk about, this is serious and we share this information, but as of today, and I put 10/6 when I made this PowerPoint because I didn't know, but still we're holding as of right now with 4 confirmed cases of COVID in our district. All 4 cases were high school students, no staff at this point. All 4 cases were due to exposure outside of school. Still causes anxiety and concern, but it's important to note that they were all due to exposures outside of school. And that the Department of Health, I've got to tell you, we talk about partnerships here in our district. It's our second goal, and the partnership we have right now with the Monroe County Department of Health is extremely strong. We have direct lines to certain people. We have Dr. Mendoza himself, who will call me even at a Saturday night at 8 p.m. to talk about the potential of a positive case in quarantining students. And so that back and forth communication has been incredible. They notify the district pretty quickly if there is a positive test, and then they start the contact tracing, and we support them if they need to know data that we can provide in terms of, it hasn't come to this yet, but they may need to ask schedules and what other students were there and bus driver. But because all the cases were exposed outside of school, we haven't had to do that yet. But again, it is a thank you. I'm sure they have a thankless job. They've got to make phone calls about quarantining and doing contact tracing. But it's been pretty good. I will also share, though, to be fair and transparent, as I called this, is social media is going to beat us to the punch every time. So Facebook starts, somebody calls and says, I heard there's a positive case. We will listen. We will reach out to the Department of Health, but we can't start anything in terms of communication until it's been coming to us from the Department of Health. There have been some cases where people call with a rumor, and it ends up just to be a rumor. So, we appreciate if you have a concern, call the building principal, call my office directly, but the Department of Health is the communication that we're waiting for, and they've been great. I skipped a slide here. So also, sorry, I skipped a slide. Got so excited talking about the Department of Health. Surveys were sent. No. Skip 2 slides.
Athletics.
Dan, tell me when to stop. Is this good? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. This is for the community, is that we report COVID data daily to the New York State Department of Health, and we'll continue to email families and staff when appropriate. So I am going to err on the side of transparency. In every positive case, people will get an email K-12. And staff will receive it, and very shortly after that, families will receive it. The Department of Health has commented very positively on our district safety protocol. So again, thank you to principals, teachers, district office staff, Alan McNiff, the board, and incredibly our students and families, because in order to determine contact tracing, the question they want to know is, were you with the positive case for more than 15 minutes, 6 feet apart, or less than 6 feet apart without a mask? So for our schools, when everybody's following the rules, there should be no situation where you are closer than 6 feet without a mask for longer than 15 minutes. And so just a huge thank you. We've been doing this for about 3 weeks and 2 days, not that anybody's counting, and we'll have to just keep doing reminders to staff, to students, and to the community about following those protocols. And so we encourage all staff, students, families, please continue to follow the Department of Health recommendations at home. In my day as being principal of the high school, I used to say my land ended at the speed bump. So I could control things as a principal up until the speed bump. Well, the same is true as a district superintendent. I have a lot of control from the time a student steps on the bus to the time they step off the bus or go home. But please, whatever families are doing outside of school, to continue thinking about COVID safety, because while we can hopefully stop the spread in our schools, it also takes truly a village to make sure that we're making good decisions for our students and for ourselves, to make sure that we can keep our schools open all year long, maybe even get back to more normal if things turn around. So we're monitoring, watching, but we have to follow the guidelines from New York State. Athletics, an update about athletics is that our athletics have been running since last Monday. COVID safety protocols are in place and being followed by staff and athletes. I just want to give huge kudos to our coaches and our athletes who are really taking it seriously, wearing their masks appropriately, following the guidelines, because they have a lot at stake. If something happens and COVID starts to spread, or because of quarantine, we realize and everybody knows that it can shut down a season and it can shut down a sport. And so I really just thank you for the commitment of our coaches and our athletes. It also comes with new rules for competitions, which is going to limit spectators. And so what we're doing across Monroe County is that each athlete will receive 2 lanyards that they can give to 2 family members for the most part, or 2 people who can be their spectators. And in Penfield, we're also always trying to be thoughtful. So, you know, students who have unique family situations might need more. We'll deal with those on an individual basis, but make sure that a student never has to choose between one family or the other. And we just really ask, obviously, everybody to support the new rules to ensure a safe athletic season. So we've got to follow these rules so we can stay open and hopefully get through our seasons and have success all year long. So instruction. Just wanted to share, the surveys were sent out to all families, students in grade 4 through 12, and teachers yesterday. And we're asking everybody to complete those surveys by this Friday at 5 p.m. Shouldn't take that long to fill it out. For families, please fill out 1 survey for each of the children in your household. And as always, if you have specific concerns, these surveys are all anonymous. So if you have a very specific concern and you write in the comment your very specific concern, I won't know who you are. So if you have a specific child concern, or if it's a staff member or a student, please work through your teacher or building principal to make sure we can address that concern. But we're really looking for some overarching data that we will share at a later date on what we've learned from this survey as we continue to look to fine-tune and hone our instruction through hybrid, 100% virtual, and our students with disabilities who are here 5 days a week for some students. The other thing I mentioned is that the reason it went to students in only grades 4 through 12 is because there is a distribution list that's created at BOCES that didn't get created this summer for our K through 3. Prior to COVID, K through 3 students did not have an email address. Now that we've moved to a one-to-one district, we've opened up, they do have email, but I don't have the ability to send an email directly to those K through 3. So we are interested in K through 3 as well. Some may need more help from families to complete those. Once we have that ability, we'll do a secondary survey to gather the information from K through 3 students. There we go. And then Penfield has, just as a reminder, in terms of the instructional models, we have approximately 10% of our students in the 100% virtual model. And we're going to be asking families to commit to the hybrid or virtual instructional model in end of November, December for second semester. And we need time to look at our schedules. We may have to change staffing. It may require teacher changes. If we have a large influx wanting to go virtual, we're going to need more virtual teachers and less hybrid teachers, and vice versa. And so there could be some changes. This is a unique year. Typically in Penfield, when you get a teacher assigned in September, that's your teacher all year long. We might need to make some shifts and changes, but we won't know that until we get the data back. Right now, we haven't had overwhelming requests to change. And so we are, one of the media outlets reported, we do have one of the lowest percentage of students in the 100% virtual model here in Penfield. So we'll be reaching out for more feedback, specific feedback from each family on what they want come second semester. And because I get the question, I will share with you, yes, we're planning on hybrid and virtual second semester. Of course, if things change and the guidance says you can open back full-time with no spacing regulations, we will absolutely be reviewing that guidance and making decisions to get back to normal. But I don't have a crystal ball, but just from what we're seeing, I'm not seeing that we're, no words coming out that, hey, pretty soon we're just going to go back to normal. So I think for us, we've got to be planful, plan for virtual, plan for hybrid, but be ready that if we do ever get the green flag to start something different, we will definitely review that and look to do that. And that's the end of my Penfield Central School District update. Are there any questions?
Board, any questions? Catherine?
So Tom, just to be clear, the guidance we get from the Monroe County Department of Health is how we proceed. So if a parent or, a concerned citizen were to contact you, but you hadn't heard from the Department of Health, your advice to them or your response to them would be you have to wait until you hear from Dr. Mendoza or their office.
Yes, so if somebody calls to be specific and says, I heard blank is a positive COVID test, right? I can't act on that. I'm not going to share an email that we heard this, but we don't just wait for the Department of Health.
Okay.
We, once we get that information, would call the Department of
Okay.
Health to trigger that conversation.
Okay.
They've been really good. There's been 2 of the 4 cases we heard about, and I would say within 90 minutes we got confirmation from the Department of Health. And in both situations, the students were not in school to begin with. They were already quarantined by the Department of Health, or because the other thing the Department of Health mentions is our hybrid schedule is extremely helpful. It's not best instructionally, we understand that. Kids are only in school 2 days a week, but in order to how many in-person days they miss because of quarantine is far less than
Right.
if it was a 5-day return to school. So that, yeah, correct answer would be that if somebody calls, we take that information, we make phone calls to Department of Health, but we can't act on anything until we get official information.
Okay, but that interactive relationship is just, it's front and center.
Absolutely.
No matter where it comes from, if it started from the Department of Health and reached out to you, or if you heard it first and you would reach out to them.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Board, any other questions for Tom? Tom, when a student is positive or they're having to quarantine through contact tracing, what's the expectation with them as far as their school activities?
Sure. So if a student is quarantined, they are quarantined by the Department of Health. And so it is law. So it's not, the school district will never quarantine a student. I just want to first say that it's Department of Health, it's law. If you don't follow the quarantine and go out, there's legal ramifications in terms of fines that can be put on you or your parent. So if a student is quarantined, they can't leave their home unless approved by the Department of Health. Therefore, they can't come to school. If they are a 100% virtual student, that's easy because they're not in school anyway. If they're a hybrid student, 3 of their days are already set for asynchronous, so they're not in school, but they're learning. The 2 days that are synchronous, like real person-to-person teaching, those days we treat as if a student was out sick. And so the teacher would provide work asynchronously to those students. They would receive what was being taught and then work through that at home. If you're quarantined for 14 days, you're missing 4 class periods, which is much different than missing 10 class periods if we were returned. So teachers will work with that. The other piece you should know is that all principals do have a script, which we are prepared to share with parents. So instead of the school sending out an email saying, blank has been quarantined, please get him work, we allow the parent to send the email, which doesn't mention that, but it helps with the parent in that chaotic time to reach out to teachers. They can write their own email, or they can use the email script we give parents to gather work, just like it would be a sick day. We also mark those days of in-person instruction as absent excused, and we mark those the day that it comes up. We're trying to be thoughtful of not going into the attendance system and marking them absent excused in advance, because then anybody with Infinite Campus would be able to figure out who might be quarantined. Although I'll share is that being quarantined is not a HIPAA violation. So sharing a name of someone who's quarantined is not a violation of HIPAA because they're not ill, they're just quarantined. But the reality is we're gonna be very careful with what we do share. You'll never get an email from me that says a specific name of a person. And of course, rumors happen and people talk, and I can't control social media, but that won't ever come from the district. Does that answer your question?
Yes, basically how much impact it's going to have on their time studying if
Yep.
symptoms permitting, they can still do work with
Yes.
the out-of-school aspect of it.
Yep. Yeah, so it moves to more of an asynchronous model,
Right.
but they're able to continue that work and focus and stay on task.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So now I will turn it over to Dr. Driffill for our budget calendar, draft budget calendar.
Yep. Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, good. So not much from me tonight, just a quick update that I want to present to you, kind of the roadmap for our 21-22 budget development process that really begins in earnest in about another month or so. Already thinking about it as we discussed last time. As Tom mentioned, he does not have the crystal ball yet, but I'm looking for one. Alan mentioned he's trying to procure different sources, so we're keeping our eyes open. So tonight is kind of the start of the process, October 6th, where we're just reviewing the process ahead of us for the next 9 months or so, as we currently believe it to be. Next month, we would look to formally adopt the calendar, and then everything is really based on board meetings from that point on. I believe every single board meeting will have some sort of discussion of budget. There might be one along the way where we don't have a formal update, but we'll always bring pertinent budget updates as they're applicable. So next month, we'll look at budget factors, goals, development guidelines with the board's input. In December, we'll be reviewing our annual reserve fund plan and applying any pertinent budget updates that we have available. Turning the page into the 21 calendar year. Typically, that's about the time when the governor presents his executive budget proposal. So we might have some early indications what state aid is going to look like. So we'll definitely have that discussion and a further look ahead to spring regarding costs. Moving into February, we'll look at local funding, primarily the levy calculation. We'll fully review a full draft expenditure budget in February. It's a little bit of a different approach to what we've been doing in budget development here at Penfield for a long time, where in individual meetings we would pick a package, review that package in full, and then move to the next package, next package, next package, and then by the end of the spring we had a full budget made. So we'll still do deep dives into some of these things. As you can see, we have transportation on there. Moving into the next February meeting, we have a deep dive into buildings and grounds where we'll bring Mr. McNiff back to cover everything related to operations and maintenance. We have to give our local levy limit to the tax department of finance and the comptroller by March 1st. Moving into March, we'll continue to refine the budget. We'll look at any gap analysis that we have, keeping an eye on Albany with the deliberative efforts around the legislative budget, what's going to happen with the Assembly and the Senate, how are they going to take the governor's numbers and do what they do. We'll identify any separate budget propositions. So for a long time, we were certainly discussing the purchase of the Barrier Road property, maybe as in February. We've looked to maybe push that back to the budget vote, so that would be something that we'd have to formally tie up and do the secret process around this time in the spring. Typically, we have budget bus purchase authorization, so I do believe that in accordance with our bus purchase schedule, we'll be buying some buses, so that'll be another proposition that we're anticipating. And then really getting into April, things should theoretically be winding up. We should be bringing a draft budget to the Board of Education to adopt, and then start all of our legal timelines around posting in the newspapers, doing our budget hearing, making sure that we send out the budget newsletter with the included budget notice, making sure we have all the public disclosures available in the buildings and on our website. So that's kind of the look ahead. It's not a radically different approach than what you've had, but it's slightly different. So that's why we're saying tonight's just purely informational purposes only. You can take a month to review, see if you're comfortable with this kind of approach, and then we could always tailor it and adjust on the fly as well. But certainly, as we've kind of been discussing, many more conversations to come. We will fully identify every single wrinkle of the budget. I assure you of that. But at that point, is there any questions with this sort of methodology and how we tackle this?
Board, any questions? Catherine?
Dan, I'm curious about how you go about, like, what we're used to. You know what we're used to, and we get that packet of information. So what's your plan or your protocol? What are you familiar with as to how you get that information to us?
So one, you'll have information in the actual presentations.
Okay.
We may have supplemental information in the budget packets if there's specific memos or something like that. Obviously, Dr. Putnam keeps you apprised in his weekly communications if there's things that are happening, if there are specific decisions that need to be made. So I think we'll probably lean on the side of more information than maybe even you're used to.
Okay.
But if at any time it feels like, you know, we're not seeing the same level of detail, or we're not seeing a specific chart or format or something that you're accustomed to, I'll certainly work to alleviate any of those concerns.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any, Lisa?
I think I have a similar question. It's not clear to me where we're seeing stuff, I guess, and maybe because I'm so used to the other method. So when it says like pertinent budget updates in December, but then we're talking about the expenditure draft in February, is that the full? So we're used to seeing the little pieces, right? So
Right.
are you saying like in February we're going to see the whole
Yes.
big? Okay.
Yep. So we'll still break it down. So we'll break it into the administrative components and the program components and the capital components, so that you see specifically what are the BOCES costs, what are the transportation costs, what are the instructional costs, what are the administrative costs, what are our costs associated with community services, what are our materials and supplies, salaries, benefits, contractual services. So we'll go into all of those sort of details. This approach just allows the board, and it also allows the community, to have a really holistic understanding of where we are throughout the entire spring. So we'll see where we are in February, any updates that we're making into March, any updates that we're making into April, so that by the time May comes around, you know, hopefully those that are interested are well versed in what the budget looks like for the following year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I just say I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, your approach. You've done this before, and we've just been stuck. I would say stuck, but we're familiar with a very consistent approach where we knew we would get the resolution that we need. So we know you'll provide that. It's just, again, that's changes sometimes hard even for us, and that's. But we're looking forward to it, and then a holistic approach, I think, will, you know, make it easier for the community to understand, because sometimes at the end of the year they don't necessarily haven't seen everything, they don't have the holistic approach. So if they can see a piece at a time, that might be better for them and us.
I just share too that different is that per this calendar, we're going to be asking the board to adopt the calendar, the budget calendar, which we haven't done before. And so I just wanted to echo what Dr. Driffill said in terms of, you know, what I hear is obviously Barb and Dan, myself, and Jim Pfeiffer, who was unable to be here this evening, you know, we work for a school board. So, you know, feedback outside of this meeting, we're happy to take a look at, have those conversations, and make sure, especially when it comes to budget, that the board is comfortable in understanding what's being presented and has the ability to ask questions and dig deep, because we know that at the end of the day, that's a huge responsibility for the school board, and want to make sure that you feel comfortable with all the data as it comes forward. And this year is going to be unique, I think, for lots of reasons.
Mark? I have another
Catherine?
comment. Yes, another comment. I would like to say that I always felt very confident, you know, with all of the budget presentations that I've sat in on. And it sounds like you intend to pick up right where Mark Sansucci left off, but with your own style. So it sounds like we'll get the same information. I was just saying to Sean here, it sounds like it's the same, only different. You know, it'll be your spin with the same information, how it's delivered. That's what it sounds like you're presenting at this point in time, that you're asking us to think about.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. There's so many mandated requirements that we have to check all those boxes along the way, that the overlap might be 98% what you're used to, just maybe a little bit different semantics, different verbiage in what we're identifying.
Yeah.
We look forward to it.
All right. So I think that concludes superintendent reports.
Thank you, Tom. I think that brings us to, I get this to click, there we go. Brings us to section 6A, which is change orders. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the following change orders as described in your agenda. May I have a motion and a second that the change orders described above be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Let's see. Policies for first read. We have two policies for first read. They are the complaints and grievances by employees and non-discrimination, anti-harassment in the district. Was there any questions or discussion or comments on those policies?
This is where I usually wait for the policy committee to stare at me, but they all know, but I can just share.
We're all staring at you.
Yeah, I know. This is, I can just, I'm happy the policy committee met. I will just say, I've missed you. So we stopped meeting with COVID, and this was our first policy meeting since March. And so these two policies for first read are part of our ongoing 5-year review of policies. So the policy committee is reviewing policies, breaking them into chunks. We started with way back in the 1000s. We're now in the 6000s, and we're gearing all the way through. And so the only changes to these policies around complaints and grievances by employees and non-discrimination and anti-harassment in the district really are some minor edits we found, and then also added protected categories. So per law, there are certain categories that are protected, and since the last time we reviewed this policy over 5 years ago, those have been updated. So we made those changes to reflect the new categories that are protected when it comes to discrimination and harassment. So no major changes to these, but they are up online. People in the community can go and review those. We are always happy for feedback. You can email any member of the board, especially those who are on policy committee, or myself, or our board clerk, Sharon Erkfitz, and we will review that at the next policy committee meeting.
Any questions or comments? All right, thank you. So the next section is actually policies for first read and approval, which is not what we would typically do, but we're doing this because these are legally required policies.
One is the policy on privacy and security for student data and teacher and principal data is policy 5676. This is a brand new policy that actually replaces policy 7243, which you'll see in the next section because we'll be asking the board to vote on deleting a policy. And so this is this policy around privacy and security for data is a required policy by law. With COVID, they kept pushing it back. First, it was going to be due July 1st. They moved it to September 1st. It's now due October 1st. We're a little behind, but it's because of where our board meeting fell. And so we are asking that policy is reviewed. The board has already seen it. It's been emailed out in first read and approval. Just so you know, with any first read and approval policy, they will be up online. People can always review them, ask questions, and the policy committee can always come back and review. But it is a legally required policy vetted by our attorneys and through Erie BOCES policy service, which is what we use. The other policy is not required. That is a brand new policy, 5682, district operations during COVID-19 pandemic. This is a specific overarching policy for our district that basically in a nutshell says anything that is in our current policy is disregarded if we're getting something out of the Department of Health, the governor, or the Monroe County Department of Health, the New York State Department of Health, or from the governor's office. If one of those organizations or New York State Education Department says this has to happen because it's COVID, then that would supersede any language in our policy. There's really two ways to do this. Some school districts dug into their policies and made lots of changes This is really has been reviewed by our attorney and is the way that is advised to go, which is having a single short policy that basically goes through and says COVID-19 is a pandemic, and during this pandemic, any change that comes out related to the pandemic has to be done and would supersede any of the language in your policy. It will be my dream, and I cannot wait, that hopefully I can come back to the board and say, we would like to delete this policy because we've moved away from the pandemic. It is specifically worded on COVID-19. It's not meant to be an overarching policy for any pandemic because it would go into place because we've never dealt with this before, and we want to be very, very careful that it's never used as another pandemic, that it's just for COVID-19. Everybody knows what it is. So not required by law, but highly encouraged from our legal counsel, and a number of other districts in the area have done something similar.
Any questions or comments on what Tom had explained or the policies itself? I would just say that seems like the least disruptive way of
I agree.
of acknowledging that we may have to deviate from our existing policies.
Yeah, just an example, and again, every district's different, no judgment, but there are some across the state that dug into creating policies on what type of face mask is appropriate. The Department of Health says you can't wear gaiters. This policy would cover that, because we would say, here is the regulation and the guidance from the Department of Health, that's covered. We wouldn't have to go back in and change. So if in 2 months they change the type of mask you can wear and say you can't wear blank, if we had it in a policy specifically outlined for a face mask dress code, we would have to meet, go through policy, come back to the board, and by that time, it had been 2 weeks. So this is the easiest way and the most fluid way to do business as usual, but know that when certain things change, whether it's attendance or those flow charts, if it comes from those 4 entities, the state, the New York State Department of Ed, the New York State Health Department, or Monroe County Department of Health, that we put that into practice and move forward.
Thank you, Tom. Now, so a motion, if there's no more questions on this, a motion would be, and a second would be in order to, that these policies be approved as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Again, and make sure there's no discussion. All in favor? Any approved? Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Now we're at section 8C, which is, as Tom mentioned, the policy for deletion, and there we go. And it's recommended that the Board of Education delete the following policies and regulations from the district manual, and this is what Tom mentioned earlier about student data breaches, which is replaced by the policy we just discussed. Any questions or comments on this, or any discussion? You? No.
I would just share for the community is that it is not required by law for us to delete a policy, for the board to do that. But as an example of what I've continued to hear from this board is transparency. We feel it's important to bring this to the board, make sure the community is aware, and make this official. It also is very easy 50 years from now when someone wants to say, did we ever have a policy on student data breaches? Whoever the board clerk or superintendent is at the time, they can review board minutes and know that's when it came out of our policy guide.
It's not going to be you?
50 years from now?
Come on.
I'll still have good hair.
So a motion and a second would be in order that the policy 7243 and the regulation 7243R1 be deleted from the district policy manual as submitted, effective immediately.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All of those in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion approved. Now, the Monroe County School Board Association, which we're a member, has meetings throughout the year, basically on a monthly basis. Does anyone attend a meeting that they'd like to discuss what transpired? Barbara?
Yes, I did attend last Wednesday the Labor Relations Committee meeting at the DoubleTree, and it was a presentation on security safety drills. HFL presented, and they did a very in-depth presentation about what they do at HFL. And one of the things was that was interesting to me was that if there's the fire alarm goes off, they always shelter in place first until they know that there isn't an active shooter or something. And, you know, majority of people attending were commenting about how that would never have happened back in the day. You know, that was, so how far we've come. The other thing was I did bring up a point because several years ago I was subbing at Honeoye Falls Lima when they had an active drill, and as a sub I was clueless because no one shared with me that I was supposed to shelter in place first. So here I am with this child out in the hallway. And so they did say that they've since changed all that, that some, one of the vice principals or the principal of the building or the secretary alerts the subs that day that, and what procedures are. So I found that they were like, oh, that was you. Yeah. That was you.
Thank you. Anything else on Monroe County School Board Association? And then we did have actually the policy committee met. We've gone through the decisions they made as far as the policies. Does anyone on the policy committee want to add any additional comments?
We're meeting on Thursday.
Yeah, we have our meeting schedule for the year, so that feels promising, that we're going to be meeting regularly again, so.
Good. Good. And then we have school tours, which we didn't get to do last year because of COVID, which was a huge disappointment with all the construction going on. We wanted to see this, so now we are going to get to see it. We have it coming up over the next 2 weeks. We're going to visit Cobbles, Penfield High School, the bus garage, Bay Trail, Scribner, Harrison, and then Landing. Basically, all of our facilities, and again, the bus garage. I assume we will have to wear our hard hats.
Depends on where we go. I think that's a great question. It probably, many board members may have received a hard hat. If you could bring it with you. If you don't have one, we will get you one. Don't worry about it. It really depends on where Alan brings us. I'll also share for the board tours, we've invited Brandon Fox, our security and preparedness manager, to come along. I think it'd be important for some FaceTime with the board, and also Brandon can talk too about some of the security features that we've added in along the way. So, yeah, we'll look forward to it. Bring a hard hat, but don't worry if you don't have one. We will take care of it.
Sounds good.
Mark?
Yes.
Originally, I wasn't able to attend this Friday, but plans have changed, and I was wondering if I could come, or is it closed?
It's a closed session now. No. Honestly, I just would share, especially for our new board member, Sean, is that, we do realize that things happen. And so if something changes like that, just all you have to do is let Sharon, our board clerk, know, or let me know. Not a problem. So if you can come, great. But also, we realize that this is a big time commitment out of your schedule. As a reminder for the community, you are all volunteers. So if something ever happens, just don't hesitate to shoot me a text and let me know. And we totally understand. But yeah, Barb, no problem. We'll make room for you.
And I'll bring my hard hat.
All right.
Good. And this brings us to any new business. Does anyone on the board have any new business they'd like to discuss? All right. With that, a motion would be in order that the meeting adjourn at 8:31. In a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.